Welcome to Viking Legacy and Lore, where myth meets history and stories are told like they were always meant to be, bold, poetic, and alive. In this podcast, you'll find tales of Viking warriors, Norse gods, ancient rituals, and forgotten truths, all told with heart, fire, and a deep respect for the world that shaped them. My promise that every episode gives you something real. A moment of wonder, a spark of insight, or a reason to see your own story differently. Before we dive in, a quick note. We're giving away an incredible book, The Saga of the Icelanders. All you need to do to enter is send your email to vikinglegacyandlore@gmail.com. Once we reach 100 signups, I'll randomize a list and I'll mail the book to one of you, anywhere in the world. All right, let's begin. I hope you enjoy this episode, and more than that, I hope it stays with you. Before the world, before time, there was Ginnungagap, a place, not a god, not even a particularly cozy abyss, just a gap, a gaping, yawning, staggeringly empty space. But not just any nothing. This was the kind of void that could only exist at the beginning of the universe. A cosmic, awkward silence stretching between two great forces. In the north, Niflheim, cold, dark, and thick with ancient frost so old it groaned just from existing. A land where even time seemed to shiver. To the south, Muspelheim, a seething realm of flame and fury where heat danced like madness and the air itself was too angry to breathe. And in between, Ginnungagap, chill in the north, burning in the south, and nothing but potential in the middle. And it was here, in this cosmic blender of opposites, that the Norse cosmos began. Not with a bang, but with a slow, slushy collision of ice and fire. And from that collision came a giant, obviously, and a cow, even more obviously. But we'll get into that soon enough. Because in this episode, we're peeling back the skies, climbing the branches of Yggdrasil, and stepping into the mythic world where giants are older than gods, where cows can birth history, and chaos isn't the enemy, it's the start of everything. This is Norse cosmology, told the way it was meant to be, with awe, wit, and a deep appreciation for the strange brilliance that only the Norse imagination could dream into being. In this episode of Viking Legacy and Lore, we're cracking open the Norse cosmos, layer by mythic layer, to uncover how the Vikings saw the universe, vast, enchanted, and held together by tree roots, prophecy, and an alarming number of giants. By the end, you won't just understand Norse mythology, you'll feel like you've lived in it. Here's where we're headed. You'll meet Ymir, the first giant whose body literally became the world. Yes, the entire world is made from every part of him, including his armpits. Well, maybe not directly, but his sweat was definitely involved, and what better source of perspiration than, well, we'll climb Yggdrasil, the world tree, and identify all 9 realms, from the shining halls of Asgard to the frost-bitten cliffs of Jotunheim. You'll get a formal introduction to the Norse pantheon like never before. Believe it or not, there's more than just Odin, the all-seeing wandering king, Thor, god of thunder who likes to smash things, and Loki, the universe's favorite wildcard. We'll wrestle with the role of giants. Were they monsters, nature spirits, misunderstood neighbors, or were they just very large and had boundary issues? We'll zoom in on Midgard, the human realm, and see where the Norse believe they fit into the saga between gods and giants. And yes, we'll march all the way to Ragnarok, the Norse apocalypse that destroys everything and then starts it all again. Finally, we'll trace how these myths echo into modern times, from Marvel movies to meme culture, and ask what wisdom they still offer now. Stick with us to the end, and you'll not only walk away with a clear understanding of Norse cosmology, you'll carry something more. a sense of wonder, a few surprising laughs, and a deeper connection to the wild, beautiful weirdness that made Viking myth not just memorable, but transcendent. Before gods, before mankind, before even the first bad idea involving mead and axes, there was Ymir. He was not born in the usual sense. He had no mother, no father, no origin story involving birds or gods or oddly specific wolves. Ymir emerged when the primal heat of Muspelheim met the ancient ice of Niflheim. In the ancient void, in the gap, the great nothing. And from that nothing, something impossible took shape. Ymir was a giant in every sense of the word, not just tall, but foundational. He was the first being, the prototype, the mold from which existence itself would be shaped and eventually recycled. But first, he sweat. That's right. According to Norse myth, the first act of creation was not a divine decree or a flash of holy light. It was a lonely frost giant lying in the darkness, perspiring. And from that primordial pit sweat came life. A male and female giant grew from the moisture under Ymir's arms, because apparently armpits are fertile ground in Norse metaphysics. Meanwhile, one of his legs mated with the other and birthed yet another child. The gods had not yet arrived, but the giants had begun. Ymir, then, was not just a creature, he was a cosmic incubator. His body was a world before the world. His blood flowed before rivers had names. He dreamed, sweat, and slept until the gods finally arrived and decided the universe needed remodeling. The three gods, brothers, Odin, Vili, and Ve, looked upon Ymir and said essentially, "We love what you've done here, but we're going to need your skull." So they slayed him, and from the wreckage of his body, the world was born. His flesh became the land. His blood, a worldwide flood that drowned the mythical giants and became the sea. His bones became the mountains. His teeth and jawbones, the rocks and cliffs. His skull was lifted high, supported by 4 dwarves, named North, South, East, and West, and became the sky. His brains, the clouds. His eyebrows, they became the border wall that separated the gods and the humans. In short, Ymir became everything. The world wasn't built around him, it was built from him. The first sacrifice, the first death, and the first transformation. The Norse cosmos didn't begin with harmony, it began with conflict, blood, and the realization that even the mightiest must sometimes be taken apart. So why does Ymir matter? Because every corner of the Norse world is shaped by this first act. It's not a scientific system, it was a story. And stories stick better than facts. Ymir wasn't just the first character in the Norse mythic timeline. He was the material of the story itself. And in the Norse belief, creation always carries the memory of its origins. The blood remembers, the bones remember, and somewhere in the soil of Midgard, Ymir's sweat is still part of the recipe. Imagine the universe not as a globe, a galaxy, or a spreadsheet of gravitational equations, but as a tree, a colossal ash tree, in fact, whose roots dig deep, deeper than death, and whose branches reach to heaven. Its name, Yggdrasil. Its job, everything. Yggdrasil isn't just some poetic metaphor dreamed up by Viking skalds during a mead-fueled evening. It's the very architecture of Norse reality, a living axis that connects all things, gods, giants, humans, the dead, the undead, and specifically a very large squirrel. Let's begin at the base and climb the tree. The roots were deep, dangerous, divine. Yggdrasil has 3 main roots, each anchoring in a powerful realm. One reaches into Niflheim, where it draws water from a well, surrounded by icy rivers and 9 serpents, including Nidhogg, a dragon with a full-time job of chewing on Yggdrasil's roots. Another stretches into Jotunheim, land of the giants, where it sips from another well, a bottomless pool of knowledge and memory. Odin famously gave up an eye for a drink from this well, because who needs depth perception when you've got wisdom? The third route leads to Asgard, where the gods gather daily at the well of Urd, tended by the Norns, fate weavers who carve destiny into the bark. And they remind everyone that free will may or may not be negotiable. From this foundation rises a trunk so vast it holds the 9 realms, like ornaments on the divine tree. The 9 realms of Norse cosmology, arranged not by physics but by mythic logic and aesthetic chaos. Asgard, the divine fortress of the Aesir gods, gold rooftops, majestic halls, heroic feasts, and at least one talking horse and a rainbow bridge. Home of Odin, Thor, Frigg, and a whole supernatural squad of gods. Vanaheim, the land of Vanir gods, a more peaceful, fertily focused tribe who specialize in magic, farming, and low-stakes existential wisdom. Think nature gods with feelings. Alfheim, home of the light elves, radiant beings said to be fairer than the sun. We're not sure what they do all day, but whatever it is, it's majestic. Midgard, the home of the Norse, the human realm protected by Odin, surrounded by Ymir's eyebrows, and always in the splash zone of divine drama. Connected to Asgard by the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. Yes, it's canon, and yes, Heimdall guards it. Jotunheim, the wilderness of the giants, towering mountains, endless forests, howling winds, and big personalities with even bigger clubs. Svartalfheim, the domain of dwarves, master craftsmen who forge weapons, curses, and devices. Mjolnir, their handiwork. Magic hair for Sif, dwarf made. And that weird golden boar, you guessed it, came straight from the dwarves. Muspelheim, a realm of fire, lava, and the original do not touch zone. Home of Surtur, a fire giant who is basically the Norse apocalypse on legs. Niflheim, cold, misty, and largely unfriendly. The realm is primordial frost, older than the gods and about as cheerful as a forgotten freezer burn. It's where Hel, daughter of Loki, rules over the dishonorably dead. Helheim, often merged with Niflheim. This is the land of the dead, not hell, mind you, just the final resting place of those who didn't die a glorious death in battle. It's a sort of cosmic DMV, quiet, gray, and a little depressing. Yggdrasil is alive, and the residents of the cosmos are constantly using it for dramatic effect. Odin hung himself from it for 9 days and nights to gain the secrets of the ruins. A hawk and an eagle perch atop the tree because Norse myth never skips on the details. And then there's the most chaotic element of all, a squirrel who scurries up and down the trunk delivering insults between the dragon below and the eagle above. Yes, Yggdrasil has a gossip squirrel because even the world tree needs a little drama. So who is in Asgard? You know them, or at least some of them, or at least you think you do. There's Odin, the one-eyed wandering king who traded vision for wisdom, and sometimes roams the realms disguised as a mysterious old man with trust issues. Then there's Thor, god of thunder, protector of Midgard, and an enthusiastic participant in both drinking contests and high-impact diplomacy. And of course Loki, the shapeshifter who births chaos, monsters, and occasionally horses. He's clever, unpredictable, and always the spark that sets the story on fire. Not born of the Aesir, but pulled into their world anyway. A shapeshifter from the land of giants, bound to Odin by blood, oath, and to chaos by instinct. But here's the truth. We're only scratching the surface. Each of these gods, and many more, will get their own standalone episode, where we'll dive deep into their backstories, triumphs, betrayals, and mythic meltdowns. Some of them will need more than one. But for now, let's meet the divine ensemble who stir the fate of all 9 realms and make the Norse cosmos the wild, wonderful chaos that it is. The supporting pantheon, Frigg, Balder, Heimdall, Tyr, and more. Asgard isn't a pantheon of 3. It's an ensemble cast full of divine personalities with enough drama to fuel 1,000 sagas. Frigg, Odin's wife, goddess of foresight and motherhood. She knows the future and refuses to spoil it because she's seen what happens. Most people don't listen anyway. Balder, the shining, beloved god, so radiant and pure that nothing could harm him until a certain plant, a sneaky god, and a potential revenge plot killed him. Heimdall, guardian of the Bifrost. He can hear grass growing, see everything, and he still manages to look stylish with golden teeth. Tyr, the god of law and war, who lost his hand feeding a wolf in a diplomatic incident that somehow everyone saw coming. Heroic? Maybe. Avoidable? Probably. And then there's Idun, keeper of the apples that keep the gods young, their secret anti-aging device. And possibly he's the most overworked produce manager in Viking lore. And then Sif, Thor's wife, whose gold hair was once stolen by Loki and replaced with magical gold. Because in Norse mythology, when you have golden hair, there's no such thing as a bad hair day. What makes the Norse gods unique? They're not untouchable. They're not perfect. They are glorious. And they're petty, powerful, hilarious, vengeful, kind, and very bad at avoiding doomed prophecies. They fight, they love, they mourn, and they rage like the Norse did, only louder, brighter, and occasionally while riding 8-legged horses. They're not so much divine ideals as they are epic reflections of the Norse themselves. And that's what makes them unforgettable and endearing. The gods of the Norse pantheon are not the only larger-than-life characters to be aware of. In fact, there are creatures older than the gods, stronger than most, and maybe, just maybe, not the villains we were all told that they are. In Norse mythology, they're called Jotnar, giants. But giants in quotations, because it's simply just a word that stuck, which is a bit misleading. Not all of them are enormous, not all of them are evil, and some are surprisingly attractive, at least by Viking saga standards. They're not just obstacles to be smashed by Thor. They're the first beings in existence, the original residents of the cosmos, and they're not gone. They're everywhere, woven into the roots of Yggdrasil, lurking at the edges of the 9 realms and popping up in the gods' family trees like a mythological plot twist. The giants hail from Jotunheim, a vast wild realm beyond the ordered boundaries of Asgard. It's a place of mountains, chaos, and eternal tension. If Asgard is the walled garden of divine order, Jotunheim is the primal wilderness just outside the gate. A place where storms are born, ice never melts, and gods don't visit without packing both weapons and a clever exit strategy if they need to retreat unexpectedly. And yet, they do visit a lot. In fact, many of the gods have giant blood in their veins. Loki, as we mentioned, is a giant, yet he lives among the Aesir. Odin's mother was a giantess. Thor's wife, Sif, possibly of Jotun heritage. And Thor himself, ironically the god's best giant basher, has a giantess grandmother, making him part Jotun. That means it's not just enemies across the borders. It's the in-laws, which explains a lot. Some giants are terrifying, others are wise, and some show up in myths just long enough to get tricked by Loki and squashed by Thor. A few worth noting: Ymir, the original giant, the one whose body became the world. Without him, there's no story, dirt or clouds or anything according to the Norse. Skrimir, a colossal trickster who liked to toy with Thor and his companions. He's big, really big. And then there's Thrym, the frost giant who stole Mjolnir and demanded Freya's hand in marriage in exchange. How about Angrboda, a fearsome giantess and mother of Loki's most infamous children, the wolf, the world serpent, and, of course, the queen of the underworld. Then there's Bergelmir, the only giant who survived the flood of Ymir's blood, making him the ancestor of all surviving giants. At their core, giants weren't just characters, they were elemental. They represented the wild, untamable forces that the gods tried to control but never quite can. Frost, flame, storm, darkness. Giants are the avalanche, the thunder, the creeping cold that outlasts the fire. And while they clash with the gods, they're also essential to the cosmic balance. Without giants, there's no chaos. And without chaos, the gods would have nothing to fight, nothing to shape, nothing to push against. They're not evil, they're opposition. And in Norse myth, opposition is necessary. After all, you don't get stronger rowing with the wind. So next time you hear giant, don't think lumbering villain. Think ancient beings older than the Norse gods. Think the voice in the mountain, the chill in the wind, the necessary counterweight to divine order. And they'll be there. And they'll be here until the final judgment, because some say the giants are not just agents of chaos. They're on a slow, cold-burning quest for revenge. After all, the gods didn't just fight Ymir, they killed him, dismembered him, and built the world from his body. To the gods, it was creation. To the giants, it was a crime. And from that moment forward, the Jotnar have never stopped pushing back, waiting, and building towards the day they finally tip the scales. That day has a name. The name is Ragnarok. The giants never forgot. The gods always knew it would come to this. Because Norse mythology isn't a story of eternal peace or perfect justice. It's a story that ends violently, gloriously, inevitably. Ragnarok is the twilight of the gods, the doom of Asgard, the final battle where everything breaks, burns, and is born again. But don't think of it like an apocalypse. Think of it as a cosmic reckoning, the last wild surge in a tide that's been pulling for millennia. Ragnarok is coming. The sky will burn, the wolf will break free, and the gods will fall. But hold on, not just yet. Before the final battle, before the giants storm Asgard and the world is remade, we need to visit a quieter realm, a familiar one that's often overlooked in all the drama between gods and monsters. It's called Midgard, and it's ours. Midgard, realm of humanity, nestled at the center of the 9 realms, wrapped in Ymir's eyebrows like a divine security blanket. Midgard is the world of mortals. It's not the highest realm, not the most magical, not the most dangerous, but it's the most human. This is where the gods look down, where the giants reach across, and where people live in the space between myth and meaning. Here we wake up, work, love, lose, hope, and age, and yet according to the Norse myth, we are still part of the cosmic design, because Midgard is not just a leftover scrap in the world tree, it's a stage where heroes are forged, where oaths matter, where the consequences of godly choices ripple across generations. In Viking society and mythology, the Vikings didn't separate their gods from their daily lives. Their mythology wasn't something distant. It was woven into the grain of every doorstep, every sea voyage, every storm cloud over the fjord. They believed fate was written by the Norns, but it was up to you how you met it. They believed the gods watched, not to judge, but to see who among mortals was worthy of memory. They believed courage was sacred, even if the odds were impossible, especially then. Midgard may not have had thrones or thunderbolts, but it had story, and that made it holy. Gods, giants, and human fate, human lives in the middle, not by accident, but by design, too fragile to rule like gods, too strange to live among giants, but capable of choosing how to face both. And in the sagas, it's often how the mortals choose that move the world forward. Kings' broken oaths, warriors' last stands, lovers' defiance, a promise kept, even if it costs everything. The gods may spark the fire, but humans carry the torch through the night. And then the night comes. Because this story doesn't stay in Midgard forever. The storm is building, the signs are gathering, the wolf is stirring, the serpent shifts beneath the sea, the gods sharpen their weapons, and the giants, well, they remember. And what happens when the dam can no longer hold? What happens when Midgard, the quiet realm, is pulled into the war of worlds? That's when Ragnarok begins, and it's time we face it. It begins with a sign. There's always a sign. Brothers will fight, and they will slay each other. The sun and the moon, they'll be swallowed by wolves. The world will tremble as the great serpent writhes in the sea. The dead will march from hell, led by Loki. And Surtur, the fire giant from Muspelheim, will stride across the Bifrost, sword blazing to set the world on fire. The gods know it's coming. They have always known. The giants know it's coming. Everyone knows it's coming. It's just a matter of time. The battle is set in a vast plain so huge that it makes Midgard look like a hallway rug. Odin will fall to Fenrir, the wolf. Thor slays the serpent, but the serpent poisons him, and it claims Thor. Tyr and Garm, a vicious hound, destroy each other. Loki faces Heimdall, and both fall. And when Surtur lifts his flaming sword high, he brings it all down. The world burns, not metaphorically, literally. The sky shatters, the sea boils, the stars vanish, the 9 realms collapse. But that's not the end, because Ragnarok isn't just destruction, it's renewal. From the ashes, a new world rises, green, peaceful, purified. The sun will shine again. Survivors will emerge. Balder, the radiant god who died too soon, returns from the underworld. And 2 humans hidden in the world tree step into the dawn of this new age. Ragnarok is not the end of the story. It's the reset button, the necessary fire that clears the field for what comes next. And perhaps the giants knew this all along, that the only way to balance the old injustice was to burn it clean. And this matters because Norse myth doesn't offer immortality. The gods themselves cannot escape fate, but they still ride out to meet it. In the Norse mind, bravery isn't measured by survival. It's measured by how you face the storm. Norse mythology has not only endured, it's thrived in modern culture, shape-shifting through centuries of storytelling into comic books, movie scripts, metal albums, memes, video games, and motivational TikToks. Norse gods are still everywhere. The stories, they never died. Let's talk about Norse mythology and pop culture, and let's start with the obvious, Marvel. In the cinematic universe, Thor is a charming space Viking, Loki is a mischievous anti-hero with a fan club, and Odin is Anthony Hopkins with an eye patch. As introduction goes, it's not the worst, but it's also not Norse mythology. The real Thor doesn't have a smooth accent. He has a red beard and a temper like a lightning strike. Loki is not some tragic anti-hero. He's a full-time agent of chaos who once turned into a mare and gave birth to a horse. Marvel left that part out. Odin is less of a stern king and more of a wandering, one-eyed war wizard. And yet, these stories work, not because they're accurate, but because they're alive. Marvel's gods aren't the Norse originals, but they are descendants shaped by the same forces: power, betrayal, redemption, and a giant hammer that can only be lifted by those deemed worthy, which, incidentally, is very Viking. Thor and Loki, Hollywood versus reality. The real Thor, he doesn't struggle with self-doubt. He struggles with giants, hunger, and the occasional cross-dressing mission to retrieve his stolen hammer. Yes, that actually happened. And the real Loki, he's not just a misunderstood villain. He's the cosmic wrench in the engine. He's the one who helps the gods just enough before sending everyone sideways for reasons even he may not fully understand. There's no neat arc of hero versus villain. Instead, there's tension, drama, moments of unexpected tenderness, and unexplainable betrayal. And all of it matters, because in these stories, even the gods can fall, and sometimes they must. So why do these stories still echo? Why do people still carve ruins into jewelry, name their kids Freya and Odin, or tattoo Yggdrasil across their back? Because for many, Norse mythology doesn't offer comfort, it offers clarity. It says the world will end, but go fight for it anyway. It's a worldview carved in extremes: fire and ice, life and death, fate and defiance. And still, these stories survive not because they are frozen in time, but because they still move us like thunder across a modern sky. Until next time, be bold, be strong, and awaken the Viking in you.